nowadays you got to have that because people nowadays.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping wonderfully well. This is another edition of the GAA Fan TV podcast, and today I spoke with Limerick senior hurler Dan Morrissey, three-time All-Ireland winner, of course, three-time Munster Championship winner and two-time National League winner as well. We spoke all about those achievements over the past couple of years, the, I suppose, rise of Limerick hurling in the past couple of seasons, obviously winning their first All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship in 45 years back in 2018. We spoke all about the journey up to winning that All-Ireland. We spoke about the years previous up to that, 2016, 2017, 2015, when Limerick were, I suppose, nowhere near the same heights as what they reached in 2018. We spoke about the influence of John Kiely, the influence of Paul Kinnerk coming into the side as well. Some of the things they changed, of course, on the outside and on the inside in Limerick hurling. We also spoke as well about this season's All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship, the final against Cork, the massive turnaround against Tipperary in the Munster Final. We spoke about last year as well, you know, playing winter hurling, the differences between winning an All-Ireland in an empty stadium and winning an All-Ireland in front of a packed crowd. So we spoke about all with Limerick senior hurler Dan Morrissey. We also touched on the Limerick Senior Hurling Championship as well, and also some of your questions over on Instagram. So there will be more podcasts released now over the next couple of weeks, a lot more player interviews and whatnot, with the fact that the Inter-County Championship is obviously finished up. And stay tuned for more club videos as well. My name is Aaron, and let's get straight into it. Okay, so welcome back to another edition of the GAA Fan TV podcast. I'm delighted to be joined here by Limerick and Ahane senior hurler Dan Morrissey. Dan, what's the crack with yourself? How are you keeping?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me, Aaron. Great to join the podcast.
Yeah, perfect. How's things been anyway since obviously the All-Ireland win last, you know, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago? Have celebrations piped down yet, or is there still a buzz, I suppose, amongst Limerick people and in the city?
Yeah, there's still a good bit of a buzz around. We had a nice few days of celebrating afterwards. You could probably do a bit more compared to the final last December when I was kind of in the height of restrictions. But then, lads were kind of back with their clubs by the following weekend, so it's kind of been club action now for the last 5 or 6 weeks. So that'll kind of finish up. I think the county final is penciled in for 2 weeks' time. So we'll probably be able to enjoy ourselves then a bit more and put the feet up towards the end of this month. But yeah, no, it was a great feeling. There's still a great buzz around the county when you bump into supporters. They're all still talking about the hurling, so it's great in that sense.
Yeah, I suppose it must have nearly meant more in many ways with the fact that I suppose you couldn't celebrate last year. So I suppose it probably meant more winning it this year again, just so it was almost like celebrating 2 All-Irelands. You kind of got, because I suppose for a lot of counties, and you've even seen in other sports last year as well, where certain teams, clubs and other sports couldn't celebrate their success. So at least you kind of got that moment by winning the All-Ireland again this year.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, look, it was a great feeling last December, don't get me wrong. Like in the dressing room after the game, we still had some crack. But then I remember we got to train back to Limerick, and I think we might have arrived into Limerick around midnight, and then it was literally everyone going back to their own houses because I think there was no hotels or no banquet, nothing like that open at that time, whereas at least this time around it was a bit more open. Obviously with Tyrone winning the football, they probably had a bit more open in terms of they were able to have their own homecoming and a proper banquet, but obviously down here the restrictions were that bit tighter. But at the same time, we still did have a good few days together as a team, which kind of makes it all worthwhile, all the training, everything you put in for the past 8 or 9 months or so.
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose definitely fascinated to, I suppose, know more about sort of the journey that you've been on over the past couple of years, in particular with Limerick, because definitely haven't seen what you've achieved over in the past 4 years, especially since John Kiely and Paul Kinnerk has come in. Obviously 3 All-Irelands, a couple of Munster titles in there, a couple of National League titles as well. Do you ever get a chance to reflect and kind of soak it in and sort of look back on what you've achieved over the past couple of years?
Yeah, it has been a fairly crazy few years in terms of the silverware that's been won. I suppose coming from a county like Limerick, we're not used to winning probably as much as we have in the last 3 or 4 years. So when you do sit back and look back at it, it is great. But look, we want to kind of win as much as we can while we're still playing. So I think the time really to look back is when you're finished and you're retired. That's when you can really look back at all the games and all the medals you've won. But while you're still playing, you're always looking at the next one and winning the next one. But yeah, as you say, if you told people at the start of 2018 that we'd have 3 All-Irelands and 3 Munsters and a couple of National Leagues, not much people would have believed you. So to have won that amount in the last few years is just unreal.
Absolutely. Like, and I suppose just looking back, I suppose at some of the main differences really, like what do you think were some of the main differences when you came into the panel originally compared with, I suppose, now, like nowadays?
Yeah, it's hard to put a finger on like one exact thing. Like obviously there was a good crop of players coming through. There was 2 All-Ireland under 21 winning teams there. There was a couple of good minors. The academy had obviously been going well for the previous few years. And then obviously look, John Kiely and put in a great team around him. In terms of the background team is so big there, and it's second to none really. So I suppose a mixture of all that, a mixture of having a great background team in place and a lot of good players coming through at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose like you're seeing with a lot of counties even this year who've kind of had a lot of underage success, and I suppose maybe you're wondering, can they kind of kick on from there as well, kind of in a similar fashion to what you have done? Like, I suppose in 2014 and 2015, like when you were kind of just coming into the panel, like we always kind of aware of the work being done in the background and that the potential was there. Because I suppose at that kind of moment in time, obviously the Limerick senior hurlers obviously weren't at the current level that they're at today, or even the level they got to in 2018. So we always kind of aware that the potential was there, or did you always believe that there was something coming up from beneath?
Yeah, I think in Limerick you always nearly believe, even when teams weren't going great. There was always hope, I suppose, that you would win a Munster and All Ireland titles. But yeah, I suppose 2015, 16, where even 17 we got knocked out very early as well. And yeah, probably at the time you would have known that there was a great setup there in the academy and there was good players coming through, but that doesn't always turn into senior success. Like with Limerick, they won 3 under-21s at the turn of the century, and they never really won a Munster or senior All Ireland after that. So just because you have a great setup doesn't always transpire to senior success. So yeah, we were lucky enough. It kind of has over the last number of years.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and like what you said there, like I suppose in 2017, like when John Kiely and Paul Kinnerk come in, like do you remember even like I suppose like kind of the first conversation they had with yourselves, or even kind of like what the message was when they came in? Because I suppose, you know, obviously in the previous years, I suppose things hadn't been going too well for yourselves, and obviously since then, from 2017 onwards, or from 2018 onwards, I suppose you've really kind of kicked on from there.
Yeah, look, it was obviously a completely new management team, so you just had to try and impress from the outset again. They brought in a lot of the under-21 winning side from the year before, so they kind of reinvigorated the squad that way. And then it was just kind of step by step, like throughout 2017, we probably took a bit of get going. We had an average enough league and an average enough championship that year, and then it was really 2018 during the league when we really started to notice the progress that we had made. We were still in 1B of the league that year, but I remember even the few games we were playing, we were putting up big scores and good performances, and then our final game of the league was against Galway to see who got promoted, and we put in a great second half performance up in Salt Hill to beat them. And that was probably the day then you were thinking we're good enough to compete at the very top, and thankfully we kind of kept that form throughout the summer then leading into championship.
Yeah, like, and I suppose from seeing a lot of John Kiely's interviews and even seeing that documentary as well, where he was speaking on the bus to the team at the end of the game in 2018, like he kind of seems like a very good man manager, someone, you know, you can have a proper conversation with or speak with. Like he probably doesn't seem maybe like the kind of maybe like the old school traditional managers that were kind of back in the day?
Yeah, look, John has a great way about him. He knows the players inside out at this stage. He would have had a lot of them at say under 21 level, and he was a selector back in 2013 with the seniors as well. So yeah, and look, I suppose one of the main things then is surrounding yourself with good people, and we have that in abundance in our backroom team.
Absolutely. Like, and what do you even think it was then, even kind of that, I suppose, like collectively even changed for yourselves kind of between 2017 and 2018? Like, do you think it was something maybe from the outside, or something like that you were speaking about, or anything to kind of that effect? Or do you think maybe it was just the like tactics, or what do you kind of think the focus was?
Yeah, it's very hard to put it down to one exact thing. Like, a lot of it just comes down to even confidence that winning games gives to you. Like, when you put a couple of wins together, even if it's only in the league, it does give you that bit of confidence, and you kind of start to realize that you're able to compete at the top level. And that's kind of what it was in 2018. I think we won the Munster League, the preseason competition in January, and even those couple of games. And I know in those games, like, teams are trying new players out, and they're not full strength teams, but still winning games does give you that bit of confidence. And we kind of brought that into the league, and the way the structure was that year, there was a small gap between kind of league and championship, and once championship started, it was nearly week on week, which I think kind of suited our team that year. And yeah, it was just a crazy year, 2018, really.
Absolutely. I was going to even say as well, you kind of touched on it there, even the round robin. Like, do you think that even kind of helped you a good bit as well, because you had more games, more game time, I suppose, more games under the management, and obviously, you could learn more, play more players, try different things out. So do you think the round robin even kind of played a factor into that 2018 success as well?
Yeah, I probably did. I loved that round robin series. I know it only lasted obviously 2 years with COVID, but hopefully it's restored again next year. I know it is a lot of games, but players want games. The last thing you want is just to have weeks and weeks of training with no game to look forward to. And I remember the old GAA calendar, even 2017, you could have up to 8-9 week gaps sometimes between your last league game and your first championship game. I know you'd go back to the clubs for a couple of those weeks, but it was just way too long a break. So I think that new structure that they brought in 2018 was a brilliant structure. And I think the way it is going to be next year, maybe the county all first, league leading, running right into championship, and then go back to the clubs for the second half of the year, is definitely the way forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, and it'll be interesting to see, all right, what kind of changes they make, I suppose, going into 2021. I suppose, like, bringing it back to 2018 a little bit. Like, obviously, when you kind of beat Kilkenny and got that win over Cork, obviously coming from behind in Croke Park, and then winning, getting a couple of goals in extra time. Like, was that kind of when the belief really started to come that you believed that you could actually go and beat Galway and win the All Ireland? Because I suppose up until then, although like you were building a bit of momentum, and clearly I'm sure you've had belief amongst yourselves, but from an outside point of view, I think a lot of people were probably still looking at the usuals, like the likes of your Clares, your Galways, your Corks example, or Tipperary, for example. So was that really kind of the turning point, or the moment where you believed you could kick on and win it from there?
Yeah, that Kilkenny game in the quarterfinal, yeah, probably was. Like, our Munster campaign was decent, but I suppose it finished on a big disappointment, losing to Clare below on Ennis. And then we kind of had to regroup. I remember we played Carlow in a preliminary quarterfinal, and then yeah, coming up against Kilkenny, I forget how many years it was since Limerick had beaten Kilkenny last in championship, but it was a good few years. So definitely getting over the line, and I suppose the manner in which we did it, we conceded a late goal, and we kind of still went up the field and knocked over a few points to take the lead back again. Definitely gave us huge confidence. Then going into the Cork game, looking up at the clock with whatever it was, maybe 7 or 8 minutes to go, and I think we could have been 7 or 8 points down. It probably wasn't looking good for us, but I think definitely the manner in which we turned it around in the last 10 minutes of that game gave us huge confidence going into the final. And I remember at the time Galway were probably still favourites going into that final, like they had won it the year before. But we had, after the Kilkenny and the Cork game, we were very, very high in confidence, and thankfully things went our way then on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I still remember that Nicky Quaid save as well in the semi-finals. Like quite incredible stuff really to go and turn it around. I suppose Paul Kinnerk, like I wanted to ask you kind of on what he's been like and his addition, because obviously he's certainly a person that a lot of people obviously speak about. I suppose with a lot of his different tactical changes and innovations in the game and whatnot. Like what's it been like, I suppose, having him alongside John Kiely as well, I suppose, to speak about you like in games at halftime, in games in the water breaks and whatnot.
Yeah, I know Paul is super. Look, his success speaks for himself. The success he had with Clare, 21s and seniors, and then coming to us as well. Um, yeah, he's just a really good coach. Knows everything inside out, and yeah, the training sessions, everything is laid out for us when we come to training. We know exactly what's expected of us, and yeah, look, he is great head player too, and yeah, it's definitely reflected on the way we play on the field then.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose that final against Galway, like, what was it like just stepping out onto the pitch? Obviously, knowing it's been, I suppose, 45 years since Limerick last and won an All Ireland, and you're coming up against a Galway side that has the likes of Joe Cannon in there and so many top class players that obviously ended a drought a year previous when they beat Waterford in the 2017 final. So, what was it like, I suppose, stepping out onto the pitch against that Galway
Yeah,
team, knowing that it was, all on the line, I suppose?
yeah. The hype leading up to the game was pretty unreal. Like well, I think it was maybe a 2 or 3 week. It was a 3 week lead up for us. I think Galway had a 2 week lead up because their semi had went a replay. Um, but yeah, you could really sense confidence. Not even confidence, but just all of Limerick looking forward to the game. It was 2007, the last final. Um, Limerick were in, so it was a bit of a gap, and obviously, 45 years since they had won it previously. So, um, yeah, look, you try and block out all the outside noise leading up to a big game because you don't want to overthink it or get too nervous about it. I think we did that well leading up to the game. We kind of focused on ourselves and tried to block out all the supporters and their request for tickets and the usual things. But yeah, once you step out onto that field on the day, the roar from the crowd looking up to Hill 16, and it was just unreal. And thankfully, we didn't let the occasion get to us, and we managed to perform well, and we got off to a good start and kind of kept that throughout.
Did you surprise yourselves even in many ways when you kind of went, I suppose, so far in front going down the home stretch? Or was it more just tunnel vision? You just kept going, kept chipping away, and didn't think about the lead or didn't kind of focus on the last kind of 10 to 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I suppose it's always a matter of looking at the next ball, no matter if you're 5 points up or 5 points down. It's always the next play and the next ball that you're focused on. So yeah, look, we'd obviously built up a bit of a lead going into injury time, and then what was there 9 minutes of injury time because of all the injuries. Um, and thankfully we did hold on in the end. But as you know, hurling games can change so quickly, and we were lucky to hold on at the end. But yeah, we got off to, I wouldn't say a brilliant start because there was a lot of wides, if I remember, at the start of that game from both teams. But look, we got a goal just before half time, and we were in a fairly good position for most of the second half, and thankfully we just about held on in the end.
Yeah, I'd imagine the buzz and the emotions were certainly running high. Like, describe the feeling, even what it was like, even when that kind of final whistle blows. I know it's probably hard to describe because I know not many people have experienced that. But what was it? What was it like?
Yeah, when the final, especially that game, and the fact that it was won in really the last puck of the game, and there was only a point in it, it's just relief more than anything. And yeah, then I suppose those couple of hours on the pitch and in the dressing room after the game are just things you'll never forget for the rest of your life. Doing the lap of honor, getting to see some of your family there on the side of the field, and then back into the dressing room with all the lads you've trained for the last number of months and years even, and knowing this is something you've trained all your life for and grown up as a kid. That's always where you would have wanted to be, in Croke Park on All Ireland final day representing your county. So to be able to do that and achieve it is just an unreal feeling, and it probably takes a while to sink in. It doesn't quite sink in on the day. But yeah, it's such good memories, I suppose, when you do look back at it.
No, yeah, like incredible scenes, no doubt about it. Like I remember watching it on the television myself, and even here in Dublin where I'm based, like you could see all the Limerick supporters and the flags everywhere and everything. Like it was definitely I suppose a monumentous occasion, no doubt about it, for Limerick supporters, players and management. Like did that All Ireland victory, do you think, mean more than the other two that followed in terms of it being the first in 45 years? And I suppose given the fact that you could celebrate it properly as well.
Yeah, look, the first is always very, very special. Yeah, in terms of then promoting hurling in Limerick, like bringing the cup around to every single school and club. Like every club wanted their own homecoming, so it was literally homecomings every day of the week between September and Christmas that year. And then people going to schools during the day with the cup as well. So it was great. It definitely led to more kids playing hurling in Limerick. Um, Look, obviously the last 2 years have been unreal as well. Okay, when you don't have the crowd, um, probably the celebrations aren't as big. And every All Ireland you have to appreciate. But yeah, that first one is always probably that bit more special.
Yeah, and imagine then the Munster final against Tipperary, I suppose, a year later, obviously a huge victory for yourselves as well. I suppose a lot of people kind of were looking at Tipperary to, I suppose, get over the line, given the fact that they'd beaten you in the round robin game a few weeks previous and won every game in the Munster Championship up until that point. So I suppose to beat them as convincingly as you did, I'd imagine that was a huge moment. Obviously winning a Munster Championship as well. I believe the county's first in 6 years. So I suppose that was a huge moment, I imagine, as well.
I was, yeah. Like I suppose, yeah, after 2018, you don't want to be thought of as 1 year wonders. So we knew we really wanted to back it up in the following year. And yeah, winning Munster was a huge stepping stone in that for us, because as you said, yeah, it was 6 years since Limerick had won a Munster title before that. I suppose the manner in which we did it, winning by so much in the end was just a great day. Look, obviously then the All Ireland semi final didn't go our way that year. Um, but look, your first Munster title is always a medal to be cherished, and obviously we've had a couple of more since then again. So, yeah, no, that was a super day as well.
Did that Kilkenny loss even sort of motivate you a little bit more than going into 2020 and even 2021? Because I think a lot of people sort of draw comparisons maybe when the Dubs got beat by Donegal in 2014, regrouped from there, made just a couple of small changes and kind of went on from there. Like, would you kind of look at it, I suppose, as in that Kilkenny loss really kind of fuel the fire for yourselves going into the 2020 league and All Ireland, given the fact he's won every game in 2020?
Yeah, I probably did. Now it's easy to say that in hindsight as well, but yeah, it took us definitely a good few weeks and months to get over the Kilkenny loss in 2019. But then I suppose, yeah, when the 2020 season came around, we kind of drew a line under it. We watched the match back and kind of picked out the things that we did wrong, and that was kind of the end of it. Then we said, look, you can't change the past; you just have to focus on the present and the future. So, um, look, we obviously had a very impressive season in 2020. We went very well in the league, and then there was obviously the huge break with COVID. But thankfully, when things resumed last September, October, we kind of picked up where we had left off, and we obviously we finished the championship very strongly. So yeah, looking back, yeah, that Kilkenny game, like we were obviously very disappointed to lose it. Um, and yeah, maybe it has motivated us the last couple of years.
And like, how did you find even playing winter hurling as well last year and in 2020? Like, it was definitely, I suppose, a different year for everyone, really. From all countries, not just from Ireland. But I suppose you had water breaks in there. You had, obviously winning the All Ireland in an empty stadium. You had no fans and no supporters. The extended panel wasn't even allowed to go to most of the games until the final. So, like, what was that whole experience like? It must have been, I suppose, brilliant winning the All Ireland, but it must have felt a little strange as well, especially with it being so close to Christmas.
Yeah, it definitely was strange. Like driving to matches in your own car, arriving up to Crow Park on All Ireland final day, and no supporters and nobody around. Um, yeah, like there was definitely a lot of things getting used to, even in terms of getting tagged out in a lot of stadiums, not being allowed to use dressing rooms. Um, yeah, I suppose looking back at it, it's crazy, and hopefully we won't have to have to see anything like that again. But it was still just a special winning the All Ireland that year. Like still I suppose in Croke Park we were allowed to use the dressing rooms, and that crack we kind of had amongst ourselves after the final against Waterford that year was still as special as any other year. But yeah, I think in 10 or 20 years time, when you look back on that championship, it'll definitely be one that kind of stands out, and hopefully there won't be another All Ireland with no crowd there at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at this year, I mean, I suppose in the league, obviously, it was fairly competitive, and obviously you had some supporters coming back, you had some fans coming back, and I suppose you had the likes of Galway and Tipperary who were going well. You were always, I suppose, there in the background in most people's eyes as the favourites. And I suppose looking at that Tipperary game, they were obviously 10 points up a half time, looking like they were going to go and I suppose win the Munster Championship. And obviously you came roaring back. You had that Cole Hayes goal as well. I mean, like that must have been like some experience, I suppose, to be on the pitch when you did turn things around. I think he came on a half time as well, I might be correct on that. Yeah. So I mean, I'd say that was a big moment.
It was, yeah. Look, it was probably the first day back. There was a decent enough crowd there. I think there could have been 7,000 or 8,000 allowed in that day, and it was the middle of a heat wave as well. So it was real summer championship atmosphere. So yeah, I came on. I think it was just 5 minutes before half time. All right. And yeah, the way that I remember going into the dressing room at half time, and naturally enough, heads would be a bit down, but there was still belief there that we could come back, and that's kind of what we did when we went out in the second half. Just took it point by point, and slowly we got back into the game. And by the water break in the second half, I think we were a point or two up. But definitely, yeah, that's if you were to pick out one game over the last 3 or 4 years that really stands out, it would probably be the Munster Final this year. Just yeah, that second half performance was just incredible, and a great feeling when the final whistle blew.
Yeah, do you even think that was the turning point, I suppose, in that season, like, or in this year in particular? I suppose, like, because sometimes maybe you need that moment or that kind of scare or something kind of just to, I suppose, fuel the fire, just to get you back up and ready. Do you think that was kind of a big turning point then, I suppose, going on then to the semi-finals and final?
Yeah, it probably was. Like the league, I suppose we were slow enough getting started in the league. It was the fourth game by the time we got our first win. And then even first round championship against Cork, we did enough to get over the line, but we were far from our best that day. So yeah, if we had lost the Munster Final that day, who knows where our season would have went. But thankfully we just managed to turn around, and we really did kick on from there. I thought our Ireland semi-final and final were great performances. So yeah, hurling it can be such a strange game and can be such small margins. Like if that day in Páirc Uí Chaoimh had went, if Tipp had plugged on another point or two, it could have been a completely different season for us. But thankfully we managed to turn it around.
And just looking at that All Ireland final against Cork, obviously an incredible performance, like 3-18 in the first half, obviously, and I mean one of the best first half performances I've ever seen, anyways, in senior hurling, no doubt about it. Like it looked hugely enjoyable as well. That's what I was going to ask you, because he even had, when Declan Hannon was getting substituted, he was smiling and looked like he was laughing. I mean, it looked like he were just having so much fun out there. Like, I mean, like I'd say that was another great moment. Anyways,
I was look the way hurling is. You can never really enjoy it till the final whistle blows. But maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes of that game, we might have known it. Look, it would have been a big stretch for Cork to have came back at that stage, so you could kind of enjoy it that bit more. But yeah, look, the first half was obviously a great performance. The lads up front took their chances brilliantly and really just went at it from the very start. So yeah, it was one of those great performances, and I suppose to do it on the biggest day of the year made it that bit more special.
And I suppose winning back to back for the first time for the county as well. Like, I mean, obviously never been done before for the Limerick senior hurlers. So I suppose something else to have in the history books there as well, and something as well to look back on, back to back Munster titles as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, there was no real talk of back to back. It was kind of like a new season. We treated it as the start of the year, but yeah, I suppose now at the end of the year, looking back on it, Yeah, as I said before, like after winning 2018, you didn't want to just be known as 1 year wonders. So it's been great to put kind of 3 or 4 good years in a row together.
Absolutely. And I suppose before we finish up, I put out a poll on Instagram, and there was just a few quick questions over there. Like, who would have been your favorite hurler growing up?
Yeah, I suppose in the 2000s, when I probably would have really started going to games, you would have had the great Kilkenny team. So there was so much great players in that team. But the one that I really did stick out was JJ Delaney and Tommy Walsh, maybe a close second. And then there's probably Dan Shanahan there from Waterford as well, who I always was a big follower of as well.
And I suppose just looking at the Limerick Senior Hurling Championship, there was just a message on that. Like, who would be your pick, I suppose, in the semi-finals from there, and couldn't Apirshik maybe go on and win the All-Ireland this year?
Yeah, look, they're 4 serious clubs now in the semi-finals. It's nearly been the 4 same teams for the last few years. Yeah, you probably have to put Apirshik maybe a slight favourites, but I'm sure the other 3 clubs will have a big say. But whoever does come out of Limerick, I'm sure will give the Munster and All Ireland a very good crack.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, it is fairly competitive, all right, and certainly the sides who normally come through Munster are always thereabouts, anyways, in the All Ireland series. Would you have any advice for young hurlers or anything like that, or anyone kind of coming through the ranks at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's just practice, practice, practice. I know it's a bit of a cliche at this stage, but I think when you're young and growing up, you can never practice enough. Any nice evening, get down to the pitch, cook against the wall. I suppose that's what I would have loved when I was young, getting down to the pitch as much as I could, and that's what I'd say to any young hurler there today.
Perfect, Dan. Well, I appreciate your time. Anyways, appreciate you jumping on. Really appreciate it.
No bother at all. Thanks for having me.